going to bring remarks for Essence?
Hi, Kirsten's on the call as well.
Okay. Oh, hey, how are you?
Hey,
I
Morgan.
got that answer. Okay, apologize for that. Okay. Anyone else join us? Okay. Okay, we're going to get started. So again, I'm Melanie Campbell. Thank you out there, and thank you, Roland Martin Unfiltered, for being our partner to bring this conversation, this briefing out of this room through Roland Martin Unfiltered. This is being live streamed on Facebook, and I think YouTube and other social media, as well as on the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation's Facebook page. I want to thank Essence Magazine for partnering with us on this endeavor for the past 5 years. This is our 5th year anniversary. I think five is a charm. And so my job is not to bring you the data, but to be a good co-host. And so I'm going to ask Essence to Kirsten West Savali to bring her remarks on behalf of Essence.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, this is very important. Thank you for that, Melanie. We have been very proud to work with Black Women's Roundtable on this report, and it says a lot. We have been invested in not telling the stories of Black women, but amplifying the stories of Black women and making sure we all have a voice here and we know what's going on. As I said yesterday, we talked about this report. Black women contain multitudes, and we will get into the numbers as they're called progressive, but you will see that our perspectives are nuanced. Some of them are surprising. Some of them can be expected, but from, child care to maternal morbidity to affording homes for our families, all those things are great concerns. So we're just happy to be able to bring that report to you all.
Thank you so much. And then we're going to turn it right over to Dr. Elsie Scott and to Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, who will walk us through the poll results. So, Dr. Scott.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Elsie Scott. I am a member of the Black Women's Roundtable and Secretary of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. And I also serve as the director of the Ron Walters Leadership and Public Policy Center at Howard University. And I would just like to take a moment of personal privilege, because today is, on this day in 2010, we lost a giant. Dr. Ron Walters died on this day 9 years ago. And so I'd just like to remember him as we carry out this work, because he was so much a center of some of the work that we were doing. Okay, so this survey that we are rolling out today, it was filled. We did the polls were taken between August 14th and August 20th of this year, and there was a total of 1,064 respondents that participated, and these were Black women who were age 18 and above. And we continue to see that Black women are very much engaged, so 97% of our respondents reported that they are registered voters. And the goal of the survey, similar to what we've done in previous years, we wanted to get feedback from Black women on their political outlook and issues. Because when we first started doing this poll, there was not that much attention being placed on Black women and what we wanted and why we were voting. And so that's one of the reasons why we've continued to do the poll, because the poll does give us insight on women's issues and how women are feeling about the present administration, what are the issues they see as threatening this democracy. So what I want to do is just spend a few minutes talking about findings from the previous studies to sort of set the framework for this year's study. So we did the first study in 2015, And during that study, we saw that black women, especially older black women, saw voting as a responsibility because of what had happened in our past. 64% felt like they vote because of the history of black people in this country being denied the right to vote. And also in that study, we found that black women were more likely to feel that the Democratic Party represents their interests. Only 1% had trust in the Republican Party. We also found that health care was the top issue of concern to black women. In 2016, we conducted our second study, and this was conducted around the time of the 2016 presidential election. And we found we found that the confidence in the Democratic Party had increased 85%. And you go back and you think about that time period, then you sort of understand that. Also, affordable health care was the top issue for black women. As you know, that there was all this discussion about trying to take away the Affordable Care Act. In 2017, we did our third study, and we had some similar findings in 2017, but one of the most significant findings we found in this year was there was a decline in confidence in the Democratic Party, 11% decline. This was very significant. And what was not surprising at all, we found that President Trump received a failing grade from black women for his first year in office. Affordable care, health care, and criminal justice reforms were the top issues of concern to black women that we found in that poll. And this was followed by living wage, jobs, and quality public education. And about a third of black women were concerned about the rise in hate crimes. And this was a new issue we added to the survey in 2017. In 2018, last year, we did our fourth study, and we found that rise in hate crimes was now the #1 issue. Rose 22 points. That was significant, and that affordable health care dropped from #1. Criminal justice reform and gun violence became the second and third priorities. And for the third year that black women again gave Trump a failing grade. And confidence in the Democratic Party remained about the same. So that brings us to 2019. I'll give a brief overview of the key findings, and then Dr. DeWeaver will take us through more specifics. That again, we know through our findings that black women are paying attention. They are in tune with what is happening politically in this country, and they plan to vote in this election. But the priorities have shifted somewhat. In 2018, the #1 issue was hate crimes and racism. In 2019, we find that black women are more focused on criminal justice reform and policing reform. That's the #1 issue. But only by 1% over affordable health care. The rise in hate crimes has dropped to #3, and this may be, when you go back and look at what was happening during the previous poll, we had Charlottesville, and so that may be part of the explanation on why that has dropped to #3. Black women are concerned about public safety, and they're concerned about the pocketbook issues. And you'll see more of that when Dr. DeWeaver goes through some of the specifics. For the third year in a row, black women gave the president a failing grade. In fact, this time he only got 83% of the people gave him an F, and another 9% gave him a D. Black women's confidence in the Democratic Party continues to remain flat, but one of the interesting findings is that young women have lost more confidence than older women. Black women are looking for the presidential candidates to address their financial issues, looking at how it's going to affect their pocketbook. If the 2020 election were held today, Black women identified their choices as number 1, Joe Biden, number 2, Kamala Harris, number 3, Senator Warren, and number 4, Senator Sanders. However, we need to mention that 26% had not made a choice yet, and it's not because they are not in tune. It's that people are making certain that they study the candidates and they come up with the right choice. And young women had a slightly different choice. Dr. DeWeaver will go over that. And so now I think I'll just turn the mic over to Dr. DeWeaver.
Great. Thank you very much. So in terms of, well, once again, my name is Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver. I am a Senior Public Policy Advisor for the Black Women's Roundtable. Excited to be taking part in this project once again this year. With regards to giving us a overview of these findings, the first one I want to turn your attention to is the question that these respondents answered, which asked their opinion about the top 3 issues that they believed were facing the Black community today. And when you look at their response to that, what rose to the top was number 1, criminal justice and policing reform. Nearly half of the respondents indicated that that was their top issue at 48%. Number 2 was affordable health care, 47%. And then rise in hate crimes and racism was actually tied with equal rights and equal pay. Both of those came in at 42%. While there was a decline in those who mentioned that the rise in hate crimes or racism was one of their top issues impacting the Black community writ large, it's interesting to note that there was a significant increase in the number of women who identified equal rights and equal pay this year over the percentage who recognized that issue last year, a 14-point increase from 28% to 42% this year. You'll see that there were some other interesting issues that they raised that also rose towards the top of their concerns, although not in the top 3. So right outside of the top 3 were things like gun violence and gun safety, followed by affordable housing and gentrification, and college affordability and student loan, among others. Also important is to recognize how there is some differential between Black women's opinions on this when you look at Black women across the sort of demographic generations as compared to Black women who are specifically millennials and Gen Zs. So among those who are millennials and Gen Zs, their top 3 priority issues were number 1, criminal justice and policing reform. In fact, over half of them were likely to indicate that that was their top issue, 55% versus 48% for Black women overall. Number 2, they had 2 issues that tied for second place in their minds. That included affordable housing and gentrification and the rise in hate crimes and racism. For that subgroup, 38% mentioned both of those things as their second choice. And then for number 3, 34%, just over a third, indicated affordable health care rose up to the top 3 in terms of those issues that they found to be especially important in terms of impacting the Black community. When we turn our attention to what are the top things that Black women identified as specifically impacting their lives or the lives of their families, we saw somewhat of a shift in those issues that they mentioned were of top priority for them. So, for example, in terms of the sample overall, over half then said that the top issue impacting them or their families was racism or rise in hate crimes. So they're really indicating some feeling about, I would argue, their personal safety and the personal safety of the people that they love as related to that particular response. Secondly, they mentioned the high cost of housing as a top issue personally for them and for their family members. And then thirdly, they mentioned gun violence. Over a third, 36%, indicated that gun violence was a top issue threatening themselves or their family members. When we look specifically at Black millennials and Gen Zs, their order was a little bit different. So their top issue that was impacting them or their family members was the high cost of housing. Number 2, that was 61%. So a very, very high percentage. Number 2 was racism and rise in hate crimes. Nearly half indicated that, 46%. And then coming in at number 3 was inequality in pay and income inequality overall. Those were the top issues from the perspectives of millennials and Gen Zs. When we looked at this question of what are those things that are the top challenging issues related to threatening U.S. democracy, the things that rose to the top for Black women included, number 1, racism and rise in hate crimes. 85% selected that choice. Some 68% selected voting rights and voter suppression tactics as a top issue threatening the democracy of our nation. And nearly 60%, 59% specifically, indicated that the rollback of civil rights protections was a top issue threatening our democracy. They also mentioned almost half, just coming in in the 4th slot, was foreign meddling in elections. They saw that as a clear challenge to American democracy. When looking at this issue of Trump's grade over the past several years, we've asked this question. And as has been the case in every previous year that we've had this question on the survey, the percentage of Black women who have given President Trump an F has been overwhelming. This year it's 83%. But what's interesting to see that every year he seems to be getting a little bit worse. That in 2017, 81% gave him an F. In 2018, 82% gave him an F. And now in 2019, 83% gave him an F. When looking at this issue of those issues that are the top issues for Black women in terms of what they are demanding from presidential candidates, what are those things that they want presidential candidates to focus on, those things that basically I believe is necessary for them to earn the Black women's vote. Some 50% said protecting the safety net was of most important to them. So that came in as the top ranking issue for them, specifically defined as protecting things like Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Also, nearly half, 49%, said that reducing taxes for low-income and middle-income families was extremely important to them. Coming in 3rd was criminal justice reform. 38% indicated that that was a key issue of concern to them. And 36% said adopting common sense gun safety laws were especially important to them. So these are issues that is critically important that presidential candidates really focus on if they want to have the opportunity to earn the Black women's vote. Okay. Also, I think it's important to note here that some of the preferences shifted when we looked at the perspectives of millennials and Gen Zs, okay? So for those women who were younger, 18 to 34 years of age, 51% of them ranked the issue of addressing high mortality rate of Black infants and mothers as their number 1 issue that they wanted presidential candidates to address. Finally, when we look at Black women's presidential choices, if the election was held today, we looked at this issue once again, disaggregating the findings by the age of the respondents. So if we look at Black women overall, the entire sample, we saw that, as was mentioned by Dr. Scott, over a quarter of them mentioned that they have not yet made a preference. They do not yet have a preference. They did not answer this question. And so that's very interesting to us, in that, as was mentioned previously, over 95% have said that they have committed to vote in the 2020 presidential election. So when you put those two findings together, it tells us that these women are very highly engaged in the electoral process, that they do in fact want to vote and will vote and plan to vote, but they're taking their time in terms of making a discerning decision with regards to making a choice that they think will be best for themselves and their families. From there, overall, Joe Biden received the largest proportion of Black women's support at 25%, followed by Kamala Harris at 15%, Elizabeth Warren at 12%, and Bernie Sanders at 10%. Everyone else was in the single digits. When we look at Black women who are millennials and Gen Zs, so specifically younger Black women, we found some different choices in terms of individuals, but we saw a similar propensity of women sort of waiting to make a selection in terms of who they will support. So among young black women, roughly 27% said that they aren't making a selection just yet. But among those who have chosen the candidate that they would like to vote for, some 19% chose Bernie Sanders, followed by Kamala Harris at 17%, followed by Elizabeth Warren at about 14%. And then coming in fifth, or fourth, I guess you could say, among the candidates that were chosen, was Joe Biden at 10%. Everyone else was in the single digits. So with that, I'll give it back to Melanie Campbell to give you a broader overview.
I think you covered it.
Okay.
I think we should open it up. Thank you, Doctor, Doctor and Doctor. I want to thank again the audience and say technology is a wonderful thing when it's working. It's not working, so we're not live as we thought we were. So what will happen for any reporters on the call, it will go live after this. So if you want to kind of hear this fully again, you'll be able to see that post the briefing. So we're going to open it up to the reporters on the call, and if you could just identify yourself and ask your question. Thank you. Anyone have a question?
Hi, I have a question. This is Melanie Eversley with Fortune. I'm wondering if there is any part of this report that surprised any of you, and if so, why?
Okay, I'll start. Yeah, there were a couple of things that surprised me here, actually. I was in looking at the candidate choices across the generations. I was surprised. I was not necessarily surprised, for example, that younger black women chose Bernie Sanders as their top choice. What I was surprised, interesting, was that Kamala Harris came in number 2, even with the younger cohort of respondents. We all know that there has been, a lot of targeting of her campaign around issues relating to her prosecutorial past. And it was interesting to see that even among this young demographic, they still picked her as their second choice in terms of their presidential selection. So it tells me that she, if she put some attention to the specific demographic, she could help to increase her standing significantly. I was also quite surprised, once again, to some extent, that so many black women across the generations were still waiting to figure out where they were going to sort of cast their pearls, so to speak. Black women are very discerning voters. We're very engaged voters. We take this very seriously. We know that this was a hard-fought right, and we know that the implications on, in electoral season is huge for our families. And so to see that in both age demographics, roughly 1 out of 4 black women were saying, slow your roll. I haven't made a decision yet. For me, it tells me that they are paying attention and they want to make sure that their issues are addressed and heard. And so that, to me, were 2 findings that really stood out.
We'll go to Kirsten with Essence to see if you had any comment to that question. Kirsten?
Yes, hi. One of them, I wasn't really surprised by the Joe Biden number. I think I continue to see if they fall among black women because, of course, his treatment of Anita Hill, of course, the 94 crime bill, his statements that he's made this campaign, that his campaign frames as gaffes, but continues to show just kind of an ineptitude, but the confidence of a mediocre white man, right? So I continue to remain surprised a little bit that his numbers are so high. I was surprised as well, a little slightly, by Kamala Harris being number 2 because of the critiques that she's gotten from activists, particularly in the Bay Area, around her prosecutorial record, around, the last thing about locking up parents and the last thing about no more schools, or build more jails, less schools, whatever she was laughing about during that presentation. So to see her at number 2, I agree. I think Black women, especially younger Black women, are just waiting for her to address that in an honest way, and will probably be more willing to support her more openly, that demographic. And not surprising, but I think interesting was the Bernie Sanders number, because there's always a lot of conversation around him not connecting with Black people, and him not resonating with Black women, even though, there are several Black women on his staff, and we see these numbers. There's the interconnectivity of race and economic policy. We see younger Black women going and following his narrative and his campaign. So I thought that was interesting.
Thank you. I want to just add too, one of the things that was a little surprising to me when we asked the question, when we added the question this year around what Black women thought when it came to threatening our democracy, that the number one issue was racism and rise in hate crimes. And so that to be able to understand the intersection of how race is playing out, we know voting rights, right, and voter suppression, and even more around issues of rolling back civil rights protections, and then, of course, meddling of our elections by foreign entities. But number one for Black women was that racism and rise in hate crimes. And so the prevalence of race being more overt now than it has, that at least I can say in my lifetime, of being able, folks are just overtly racist. We talked about this the other day, the reality that if you go to the park, somebody want to profile you at the park, they want to profile you in the car, they want to profile, and so the idea that just quote unquote average white folks just feel it's okay to just say and do anything to Black folks is a real problem. But how that also plays out when it comes to the issue of a threat to our democracy, because when you have racial tensions, it is an impact on the country. And so that was, I would say, the number one thing for me.
I just had one surprise that I would like to mention is that Cora Booker came out so low, both among young women and the overall group, especially when I look at the fact that criminal justice and policing reform came out number one issue. And he has spoken more about these issues and talked about his plan. Of course, now Kamala Harris has a plan on criminal justice out. Maybe she saw our findings and got a plan out. But I did expect for him to do better when I saw that the top issue was criminal justice.
All right, Dr. Scott. We're going to come back. Any other question? And please identify yourself.
Fancy with Swagger Magazine. I actually have 2 questions. I wanted to know if, do you know if any of the candidates from the previous election looked at the reports then? If it's been 5 years, right, that you all have been doing this?
We put it out, we actually normally release it during Congressional Black Caucus Foundation annual legislative conference. We'll go deeper even tomorrow and having a conversation around it. So those with Black women leaders from across the country, some in the room, from leaders of the Black Women's Roundtable. And so we'll be even going even further, but we share this data publicly. We share it with elected officials. And so it's out there. Do we send it to them? Because it's not about them. Really, the poll is done, so we have an idea of what Black women are thinking for our purposes of organizing and engaging and lifting up the voices and concerns of Black women. And so for candidates, it's a freebie, if you will. It's out there. They can use it. But I would say if you ignore it, you ignore it at your peril.
Okay, and also I wanted to know, were the numbers for the undecided or unknown, were they about the same for the previous election, presidential election, or was big difference? Okay, I see Ms. Campbell. Okay, yeah. Okay.
We'll have to go back and look if somebody can go pull it. We can get that to you, but I will say, and Elsie may have that.
I'm fairly certain that it was not 1/4 undecided in the last presidential election.
Okay. Thank you.
Any,
Sorry, hi. This is Sharice from Madame Noir and Hello Beautiful. I just wanted to ask about the polling demographic, about how you guys went about choosing the selectees who would participate in the poll each year. If it was like an email blast or a mailer, just was wondering how you all sent out the information for the
and that's a
participants.
and that's a Essence question response. So I'll turn it over to Essence because they actually filled it for us.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
Hi, this is Dr. Avis. I'll just say generally.
Kirsten's not there?
Yeah, Kirsten, are you on the line still?
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yes, I believe Shane is also on the phone. This is my first year working on this, but I know this year, as far as the Essence, we have women that are randomly selected. We typically go to around issues around politics and community and activism issues, and they are randomly selected for the poll. As far as the years previously, I can't really speak to those, but that was the process this year.
And this is Dana. I'll just piggyback. It was fielded via email blast.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Going once? Sold. Thank you all for joining us for this briefing. If you would like to actually have a copy of the poll results, you can go to unitycampaign.org, UNITY campaign.org. And I think even if you Google it, it'll pop up quite a bit. And just make sure you're looking at 2019. Essence also has it posted. I'm correct. I hope I'm correct. You, ladies, right? Can I say essence.com? And I know there's an article already written on it, so I think if you say that, it'll pop up. And then again, we will have a recording of this briefing that will be on Roland Martin Unfiltered, as well as the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation's Facebook page in the next 30 minutes. So that'll be by 2:30. All right, thank you so much, and join us if you will. We will be live tomorrow for our 11th annual Black Women's Roundtable Women of Power Policy Forum from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Washington Convention Center in room 146C. It will be live streamed, and we know that all the bells and technology will be working. So we have quite a bit. We'll be putting out, I believe we'll be putting out a press release on tomorrow to give all of you all more details about the conversations we'll be having around the poll, but also other very, very important issues and what Black women plan to do around leveraging our leadership and power in the 2020 election. So stay tuned. We have two dynamic, what we call power table conversations that will be taking place tomorrow between 2 and 5:15. Thank you so much.
How can we access that live stream?
Roland Martin Unfiltered, as well as the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation Facebook pages, live from 2 to 5:15. And thank you so very much. And thank everyone for joining us. And thank you again, Essence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke.
This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet or the black carpet, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.